good, all you beautiful people out there? How y'all doing today? That is fantastic. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the channel where we will be doing a season preview of the AFC East division as we head into the 2023 NFL football season, which is kicking off in less than a month. I am so freaking excited for it. But before we get into the video, I would like to ask, if you have not already, please like, subscribe, and share the video. It really helps us get us out to more viewers, helps boost the exposure of the channel, helps us grow, helps us get a bigger community, and that is something I am striving for this year. So if you have not done that already and you'd like to, that would be greatly appreciated. Tell your friends, tell their friends, tell their friends, tell their friends, tell friends of friends of friends. You get the picture. Also, if you have not already, please go support me on my Patreon at patreon.com/Double Diesel Sports. If you like to support the channel, help us put more money into this so we can get a better production on this, that'd be greatly appreciated. So thank you very much. So the links to that will be in the description down below. But let's get on with the video. So the AFC East is what we're going to be talking about today, and this is a division that has a lot of people talking heading into the season as something that's going to be potentially the toughest division in football. Where have we heard this before? Last year around this time we were saying that about the AFC West, where we said, oh, the AFC West is going to be an absolute bloodbath. There are legit three or four teams that can legitimately win that division, and everyone's saying the same thing this year. And last year, the AFC West ended up just being the same thing, where it was just the Kansas City Chiefs and everybody else. This year, we don't know what it's going to be like. Could it just be the Bills and everybody else? Could it be the Jets and everybody else? We don't know what's going to happen. Or is it going to be as much of a bloodbath as we're hyping up to be and expecting it to be? We are going to talk about it and see and determine for ourselves if we think it can be as good as we think it can be. And we're going to do that by going over each position group in the division, ranking them 1 through 4, in my opinion, at this point in time of where each team stands within that division. We're going to be doing this for all 8 divisions leading up to the season. I have everything planned out. We're going to be banging these out over the next few weeks, and we are going to start right now with the quarterback position. And right now, at this point in time, this has the potential to be, by year's end, the best quarterback division in football. And right now, number 1 is clearly Josh Allen. I mean, he's the most proven, obviously outside of Aaron Rodgers, of course, but we'll get to him in a second. Josh Allen in Buffalo is the most proven out of all these guys as far as in his team, culture. He is the gold standard. He's one of the gold standards in the NFL right now of what a franchise quarterback in 2023 is expected to be like. Big, strong, athletic. I don't even think the most optimistic of Bills fans back in 2018 when they drafted him expected him to be as great as he's become. Last year was a little bit of a downtick, though not as much. He definitely had a lot more turnover-worthy plays than expected in years past when he had Brian Daboll being his offensive coordinator, especially in the red zone. He had a lot of picks in the red zone, especially late last year. But it's nothing to worry about. He is still Josh Allen. He's still one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL. Rivaled, arguably, by number 2, which is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, the saga in the offseason, which went on way longer than it should have, of what's going on with him and the Packers and the Jets, what the hell's going on. Finally, they were able to get the trade done, what was it, a couple weeks before the draft? Yeah, it was a couple weeks before the draft. And he's finally officially a New York Jet. Where have we seen this before with the New York Jets, of getting these old future Hall of Fame Packer quarterbacks? Last time they did that, it worked out the first half of the year and then didn't work out, and he was gone within a year. So they're hoping it's not going to be the same thing with Aaron Rodgers, though they did sign him to a 2-year extension where he's getting $75 million per year over the next 2 years or something ridiculous like that. And I'm going to be honest, I am a little skeptical of this move for one reason and one reason only. Everybody's been talking about how Aaron Rodgers is what this team needs, what this Jets team needs to finally get over the hump. They have the roster, they have the talent, they had a defense that was lights out last year, they have good young offensive pieces, and they were just missing the quarterback position, and now they have Aaron Rodgers, and he's going to bring them over the top. My question is, did we not say this exact same thing about Russell Wilson and the Broncos last year? And I know people are going to be like, they're two completely different quarterbacks or two completely different systems, and they had Nathaniel Hackett, who was a complete disaster of a head coach. Guess who's the offensive coordinator with the Jets this year? One Nathaniel Hackett. Now, I get it. People are going to be like, well, it's going to be different because Aaron Rodgers, he won 2 league MVPs with Nathaniel Hackett being his offensive coordinator. First of all, how much of that offense was Nathaniel Hackett and how much of it was Matt LaFleur? Let's be serious for a second. How much of that offense during Aaron Rodgers' 2 league MVP seasons was actually Nathaniel Hackett? Because before Hackett went to Green Bay, he was the offense coordinator for many years with the Jags. Well, not many years, for noticeable years with the Jags, including the 2017 Saxonville season and 2018, where they had one of the worst offenses in the NFL. So it really is sort of like this has a chance to be a complete disaster. And I hope for the sake of Jets fans, it's not. Though, as a Patriot fan, it would be kind of funny. But I really don't, from a football fan standpoint, I don't want it to be, because I do like Aaron Rodgers. I know the media likes to shit on him because of his attitude or how he acts in the media or whatever. I like Aaron Rodgers, and I want him to be successful. I want this team to be successful because honestly, Jets fans, I feel like, have suffered enough. Though they are incredibly annoying, I do think they have suffered enough, and I think it's time for them to finally experience something good. But I just want to preference by saying, hey, just don't get your hopes too much, because this has a potential to blow up in your face and blow up badly. And then you have those 2 guys, which are clear-cut elite quarterbacks, and then you have 2 guys that are fighting to be elite quarterbacks, and one who's just fighting to stay alive. Well, actually, 2 guys fighting to stay alive, one figuratively and one literally. One of which is Tua Tagovailoa, who, last year, he went into last year. Remember when they got Tyreek Hill last year? And I'll touch on this again later in the video, where they got Tyreek Hill, and that video came out in training camp where he threw a deep ball to Hill, and it was a wobbler, and it was underthrown, and everyone said, Tua sucks still. He's not going to be good anymore. Well, put him in a Mike McDaniel offense where he is incredibly accurate, incredibly efficient, and he looks like one of the best quarterbacks in football. And he was like that. The problem is he couldn't stay healthy all last year because he was dealing with concussion issues. He had that one really scary injury on Thursday Night Football against the Bengals last year, where he should not have been playing in that game to begin with, because he got dinged up the week before on a concussion, it looked like. And there was also a period at the end of the season where he got another concussion on Christmas, where no one knew when it happened, but he got another concussion, and then he wasn't cleared until after the Super Bowl. So it was it's a situation with Tua Tagovailoa where it's like, if he gets another concussion this year, he might have to hang it up. And Tua has even said, he contemplated retiring last year because of the concussion issue. So that's really the big question mark with Tua. We saw last year, if he has the right offense, he has the right structure and the right pieces around him, he has the potential to be a Dak Prescott or Kirk Cousins level player. But it's a matter of, can he stay upright? Can he not get another concussion? Because if he does, then he might actually legitimately have to say, all right, either he has to say it or somebody else has to be like, all right, it's time to pull the plug. It's time to call it a career because it's just getting too dangerous for you now. But that's Tua. If he stays healthy, then I think Miami will be fine because the offense, they operated really well under Tua last year. So if he's able to stay upright and he's able to stay healthy all year, they're going to be just fine with him. And now the biggest question mark is what to do with Mac Jones. And there are two camps when it comes to New England. There are the people that say, hey, last year was horrible because his offensive coordinator was a former defensive coordinator. And everyone's saying, hey, last year shouldn't really count against Mac. Let's just give him a chance. And then there's also the side of the fan base that says, Mac Jones sucks. He's not the guy. He can't do anything. We need to get him out of there. There are some people saying they should start Bailey Zappi over him. Now, I think that's ridiculous. Though Zappi did play well last year in the few games he did get to play in. But I'm in the former. I think last year was such a disaster that it can't get any worse. You know, I compare the 2023 Patriot offense to the 2022 Jaguars as a whole, where they're just sort of like a giant shrug emoji team where we have no idea what this team is going to look like. Same thing with the Jaguars last year, where we had no idea what they were going to look like because it was such a disaster under Urban Meyer. Whereas with the Patriots, it's like things were such a disaster when Matt Patricia running the show. We don't know how good or how bad this offense actually is. And Mac struggled last year significantly, especially compared to his rookie year. But he played also in games as well as he could have possibly played, despite, terrible play calling, despite terrible play design, despite yelling at his coaches and apparently going outside of the organization to seek coaching, which, again, look at the situation last year. Can you really blame him? So this year, with Bill O'Brien in there, it should be significantly improved. And at this point, fans are hoping that he gets at least back to his rookie form, or in my expectation, hopefully better than what he did in his rookie year. Because if he's just what he was as a rookie, or even just slightly worse than what he was as a rookie, that to me is the indication of like, all right, he's not the guy, it's time to move on. But if he plays better, and he plays like, let's say, Kirk Cousins, then I think that's enough to be like, all right, we could have something. If we put the right structure around him, we can be really damn good. So it really is just a wait and see on Mac Jones. It's a wait and see on the Patriot offense as a whole. But as of right now, I can't really rank him better than the three quarterbacks in this division at this moment in time. And look, there are two, as far as the quarterbacks go, there are two situations how this could play out. This could be a situation where Josh Allen and the Bills are just head and shoulders above everyone. Aaron Rodgers turns into Russell Wilson 2.0. Tua can't stay healthy, and Mac regresses again. And that could be a possibility. Or this could be a situation where Mac Jones returns to rookie form, if not better. Tua stays alive, and Aaron Rodgers is as good as advertised. And like I said, this could be the best quarterback division in all of football that we have seen probably ever. So that's the quarterback situation. And now it's time to move on to something to take the pressure off of the quarterbacks, and that is the running back position. And you'll notice that I have two guys for each group. That's mainly because a lot of teams now, you probably noticed this, a lot of teams in the NFL use these two running back systems. The age of the bell cow back, the cowbell back, there we are, is completely dead and gone. And, you see that now with how running backs are being treated nowadays, especially the star ones. But that's a story for another day. But right now, these are the situations we have at the running back position where it's same thing, where it's like, two teams are head and shoulders above the other two. First of all, we have number one, which is the New York Jets with Breece Hall, who was a stellar rookie for them last year. Unfortunately, had a season cut short because of a torn ACL he suffered in, I want to say it was the game against Green Bay. Either Green Bay or Denver. I can't remember off the top of my head. But he's going to be coming back. Hopefully he doesn't miss a step, because there are times where you see running backs who suffer, who suffer like these really bad lower leg injuries, like knee injuries or Achilles injuries. They come back and they're just not the same player. They lose that explosiveness. I mean, just look at someone like a Cam Akers, for example. He was a stellar back for the Rams, and then he blew out his knee, and he just has not been the same since. You hope Breece Hall isn't like that, because he's such a great athlete, because he's such a great runner. And you saw last year when Breece Hall went down, I mean, there was another huge reason why that team didn't succeed last year, late in the year. But most of it was because they didn't have someone like a Breece Hall to rely on, who's someone that has the ability to just take a 5-yard design run play and break it for a 60-yard touchdown. He has that home run hitting ability, and they hope that he isn't affected too much by that injury that he suffered last year. Because if he's able to stay healthy and he is as good as he was as a rookie, like if he is as good as he was in his rookie year and he just is like that his entire career, he is a top 10 back in the league, legitimately. But if he isn't, then Michael Carter, you have worse backup options at running back than Michael Carter. You know, he's just sort of your typical third down back, good out of the backfield as a receiver, but not someone you want to rely on as your full-time 3-down running back. Not all that great in between the tackles, but he's a really good receiving back. So it really does rely on this running game, sort of relying on Breece Hall staying healthy. And then you get to number two, which is New England. And Ramondre Stevenson, who kind of had a breakout year last year. You know, he started out trading carries between him and Damian Harris. And then by year's end, he was the official number one back on the depth chart. And you saw it, man. He is 6 foot, close to 250 pounds. He's just a bowling ball of a human. And you saw him multiple times last year where he was breaking off big runs, breaking tackles, running over guys. But he's just light enough on his feet where he's also able to juke them out of their shoes. He has the potential to be something really special, especially in this offense that we'll talk about later. Doesn't have a lot of firepower in the receiving game. So they're probably going to have to rely on this running game and Ramondre Stevenson a lot. And the backup at the moment is Pierre Strong, who I loved Pierre Strong coming out of, South Dakota State. They had a 4th-round pick on him last year, and he's really the guy that has the juice. They have the potential to have a thunder and lightning backfield if Pierre Strong hits. If he's able to, because we saw at his time at South Dakota State, if he's able to be even 50% of what he was at South Dakota State, he has the potential to be what, prime Reggie Bush was, both as a receiver and as a runner, where he just has that ability to just this lightning quick, straight line speed, juke you out of your shoes. He is just an incredible athlete with an incredible amount of athleticism and speed and juice. And he is a great complement to Ramondre Stevenson. He is the backup at the moment, assuming they don't sign another back off the street, whether that be Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette, who they've worked out. We'll just have to wait and see on that. And then number 3, 3 and 4 are sort of the less proven groups / groups that you're not really all that excited about. Starting with Buffalo, James Cook had some flashes last year as a rookie out of Florida State, but, definitely had some growing pains. His first ever carry in the league was a fumble. And, like I said, later in the year, he did get some confidence going. He did have some nice games, but, it came in splashes and it wasn't really all that consistent. So you're hoping that with getting a veteran there like Damian Harris, this sort of back him up, that he's able to learn a little bit, and you're hoping to take the pressure off him a little bit with Damian Harris in there, who is experienced, who is a good power back in his own right. But at the moment, James Cook is the number one back, and you're hoping he takes a year two leap and he doesn't stay what he was as a rookie. And then Miami, or the Miami 49ers, because both these guys are former 49ers. Both these guys were with Mike McDaniel in San Francisco. Raheem Mostert, speed, and more speed. That is his game, is just straight speed. What's also his game is not staying fully healthy for a full season. That is just, he has never played really past week 8. He's always dealt with injuries constantly. But if he is able to stay healthy, he is perfect for this system, as is Jeff Wilson. You know, they got him in a trade last year at the trade deadline, and he's been a really good back. Not somebody you want as a full-time starter, but again, he is just the typical guy you want in a Shanahan system, knows how to run wide zone, knows how to be a good receiving back, has great speed. So he is perfect for this system. But, you know, compared to the other groups, as far as upside, these are not guys that you are like overly excited about, whether because of injuries or because you just know they can't be full-time number one backs. But now let's move off of the running backs and talk about the sexy part of the offense, and that is the receiving cores. And there is, in my eyes, a clear number one, which is saying something because of what number two has. But to me, there's a clear number one, and that is Miami. And, you know, when we talk about why Tua was so successful last year, not just because of his efficiency and his accuracy, but it also helps of having this receiving core. I mean, Tyreek Hill, usually it would start with Tyreek Hill and end with Tyreek Hill because he's a game breaker just on his own. And I know, like I said this earlier in the video when we were talking about Tua, of everyone coming into last year thought that he was going to take a dip in production. Everyone saying, why did he want to leave Kansas City? He's never going to win anything. He's not going to be as productive with going from Patrick Mahomes to Tua. And he looked just as you expected Tyreek Hill to look, and he produced exactly how you expected Tyreek Hill to produce. You know, going from Patrick Mahomes to Tua did not change whatsoever. He is still every bit as deadly as you expect him to be, regardless of who's throwing him the football. And there's really nothing you can say about Tyreek Hill that hasn't already been said. And then having Jalen Waddle as your number two is just not even fair. Like, Jalen Waddle, he was a top 10 pick for them a couple years ago, and he is somebody that we thought was he could be a legit number one receiver on really any team. Like, about 3/4 of the team in the league, Jalen Waddle can step in and be their number one receiver on day one. And he's this team's number two, which is, like I said, it's not even fair. It's a complete cheat code. And this is the best receiving tandem in the NFL. You know, I said Raheem Mostert. I mean, really just this Dolphins offense in general is just speed, more speed. Oh, and by the way, did I mention speed? That is what this Dolphins offense is, and it's so fun to watch. When they're clicking and they're all on the field, it is so fun to watch. And then they bring in Braxton Berrios in the offseason, where this is his third AFC East team now. You know, he was drafted in the 6th round by New England many years ago, got cut, went to the Jets, was a really good slot/gadget piece for them, also good in the return game. And now he's officially here in Miami. You know, let him wait out his contract, go to Buffalo in a couple of years, and then and then it will all be set. He would have completed it. But as far as him in Miami, I think he's a really great fit for this Mike McDaniel offense. He's sort of in the same build where he's a smaller guy, has some good speed, not elite speed, not great speed, but good enough speed. And he's going to be this team's gadget piece, where they can use him in a lot of different ways and a lot of different formations. You know, I'm not saying he's going to be like Deebo Samuel, but he can definitely be like this team's Deebo Samuel. And they can just line him up anywhere. They can line him up in the backfield they want him to and have him just be a complete matchup nightmare. he is a really fun, interesting piece that I would keep an eye on for this Dolphins offense. And you're hoping to rely on these receivers because you are not going to get anything out of the tight end position. Their tight end at the moment is Durham Smythe, who's just a below average tight end. He's their best option at tight end right now after they lost Mike Gesicki in the offseason. And, definitely a lot to be desired at that position. And then you get into number 2 with the Buffalo Bills, and it's Stefon Diggs is his team's clear number 1. I mean, again, it's same thing with Tyreek Hill. What is there to say about Stefon Diggs that hasn't already been said? He has been the machine that has kept this Bills offense going. I don't know what this offense or what Josh Allen would look like had it not been for Stefon Diggs being traded here, because he is the definition of a number 1 wide receiver. He has good speed, not great speed, but he is just an excellent route runner, excellent hands, great chemistry and rapport with Josh Allen. Like I said, he is the engine that keeps this Bills car running. So if they lose him, then there's going to be a significant dip off, because Gabe Davis, who everyone was expecting to have this huge breakout last year, he had that 4 touchdown performance in the playoff game against the Chiefs in 2021. And everyone was expecting him to have this huge breakout year last year, and it just didn't happen. And it proved that, he just isn't that guy. And if you get into a situation where you do lose Stefon Diggs and Gabe Davis has to be your number 1, all of a sudden this offense isn't going to look as productive as it could be. So Gabe Davis, you're hoping last year was just sort of like a down year where expectations were too high for him. You're hoping that maybe with lower expectations that he could perform better and he doesn't feel as much pressure to really have a breakout and be a true threat for this team. But it's a wait and see. Right now, the starting slot receiver for this Bills team is Trent Sherfield, who they got from Miami in the offseason. Though they're hoping probably at some point Khalil Shakir can become that player for them. They spent a 4th round pick or 5th round pick on Khalil Shakir last year. So they're hoping he can be that guy. But at the moment, it is Trent Sherfield. Again, one of these fast slot types. Went from San Francisco to Miami. This is going to be his first year outside of one of those Shanahan-style systems. So it's going to be a learning curve for him. So we're going to have to wait and see on him to see what he can look like outside of a system like that. And then Dawson Knox, who's just this really great athlete. Not the best run blocker, but he is an absolute threat in the receiving game and in the red zone. He has sort of been Josh Allen's security blanket outside of Stefon Diggs. So having him here is just a really good piece to have to keep this Bills passing game moving, because, like I said, if a situation, Stefon Diggs has never dealt with injuries, outside of his college days at Maryland, but if he for some reason does get injured, they're going to need to rely on somebody, and Dawson Knox is really the only guy you can truly rely on to be somebody that Josh Allen can rely on in this group. And then you get to the New York Jets. Garrett Wilson was the Offensive Rookie of the Year last year, and he was everything as advertised coming out of Ohio State. Great route runner, amazing ball skills. Aaron Rodgers is going to have some fun with him. We saw what happened last time Aaron Rodgers had, a great number 1 receiver who wore 17, and we saw the damage they can do. Jets fans are hoping that Rodgers to Garrett Wilson can do just as much, if not more damage, because you can argue that Garrett Wilson is a better athlete than Devontae Adams was. And then it's kind of it after that, because you have Alan Lazard, who he's really only here, and he got the contract he did really only because Aaron Rodgers likes him and he's Aaron Rodgers' boy. Other than that, he is not... He is really not that good. He's a big body, and that's it. Other than that, he's slow. He's not a good athlete. He has really inconsistent hands. And he's, like I said, he's here just because He's best buddies with Aaron Rodgers, and that's sort of it. Which, I mean, I guess there's worse options than Alan Lazard as your number 2, but you're not happy with it per se. And then you have McCole Hardman as your slot guy. He was really supposed to be like the next Tyreek Hill type in Kansas City, where he's just an absolute burner, a complete deep threat from the slot, and that's it. And everyone was expecting him multiple years in Kansas City where he was going to take that huge leap and really establish himself as one of the best deep threats in the league, and it just never happened. And I don't know if it's going to be like that any different in New York. I'm not expecting it to. If it wasn't different with Patrick Mahomes, I don't know why it would be different with Aaron Rodgers. That's not a slight to Aaron Rodgers at all, but it's just, going from Kansas City and that offense to this offense, if you're expecting McCole Hardman to all of a sudden take the huge leap, why? But that's sort of it. What you see is what you get with McCole Hardman. He's just a great speedster from the slot. And really, that's all they really need him to be. Because, you're not really getting speed like that from anybody else, especially not Alan Lazard in this group. And then Jack Conklin is just a fine starting caliber tight end. Made some good splash plays last year. Like I said, you can do worse than Jack Conklin as your starting tight end. He's a good tight end for sure and can definitely be a good security blanket for Rodgers. And then there is a clear-cut bottom group in this ranking. Unfortunately, there is. Let's just keep it a buck. From an upside perspective, this group has little to none. I'm, of course, talking about New England here. And their best receiver at the moment, their number 1 receiver at the moment, is Devontae Parker. And we saw, back in, 2018, 2019, where if Devontae Parker is able to stay healthy, he can be a 1,200-yard caliber receiver when he's healthy. The problem is he's never able to stay healthy. They gave him an extension in the offseason, which was very surprising because I figured he would be either trade bait or he'd be the odd man out. But no, they gave him an extension because they recognized, hey, he's the best guy we got here. And, let's talk about Devontae Parker's game for a second because he is really a vertical threat. Doesn't have great speed, but he's a great 50-50 ball winner. You saw that in flashes last year where they were just able to throw it up to him, and he was able to win a lot of those 50-50 jump balls. They're going to have to rely on him to do that consistently because you're not expecting him to stack corners and just beat a guy over the top with his speed. That's just not his game. That was never his game. And, like I said, just having him as your number 1 receiver is just sort of, you're okay with it. You're happy with it, but you can definitely do better. Tyquan Thornton is the team's number 2 at the moment, or listed as their other outside receiver, and they're hoping he has a breakout year last year. Last year was definitely disappointing. I thought he was going to be way more productive than he was, but again, it's sort of like how much of that was him and how much of that was Matt Patricia not knowing what the fuck he was doing. So you're really expecting Tyquan Thornton to have a breakout here. I loved him coming out of Baylor. And he really is a good size-speed combination with actual receiver skills. A lot of times you see these track stars and they don't really know how to play the position. Tyquan Thornton knows how to play the position. He's a really good route runner, really good hands, despite, that was another main criticism with him coming out was he has really small hands. But you saw last year that wasn't really that much of an issue. He doesn't really struggle with drops all that much. So he is a complete receiver, and it's just a matter of can he adapt and can Bill O'Brien find a way to use him. I trust Bill O'Brien in finding a way to get the football in his hands, and it's just on Tyquan to take advantage of that and really become the player that I feel like he can be. And then Juju Smith-Schuster is this team's starting slot, though I do think they will rotate in that the slot with him and Kendrick Bourne. But Juju's the man they paid a lot of money to. He's the guy that they felt comfortable letting Jacoby Myers walk in the offseason for. And it really makes sense. When you look at Bill O'Brien's offense, they rely a lot on these run-after-catch threats. And Juju's just a much better player at that than Jacoby Myers. And Juju, the hype on him from his days in Pittsburgh, I think are long gone. He's not the number one receiver that we all thought he could be, but he's still an excellent number two who can be a really good separator, really good route runner, really good red zone threat. He is just sort of, again, a guy that's like this team needs, but also you can do better than, if that makes sense. And then Hunter Henry is listed as a starting tight end, though this team will use a lot of 12 personnel. Not listed here is Mike Gesicki, who they signed from the Dolphins in the offseason, who Gesicki is much more of a true wide receiver playing tight end, whereas, Hunter Henry is more your traditional tight end where he's a really good run blocker, good in short yardage situations, good red zone threat, and that's really it. But as far as upside goes, him along with everybody else in this core, they are light years behind what the other teams in this division have. So we are about to go from the sexiest part of the offense to the least sexiest part of the offense, talking about the offensive lines for all these teams. And this is going to be the rare spot where New England actually has the best unit of any of the other teams in this division. Their offensive line, to me, is clearly the best out of any group. So we're starting out with the left tackle with Trent Brown. He might be the biggest or the second biggest question mark of this offensive line because Trent Brown, we know he has the ability to be a great left tackle or just to be a great tackle in general. It's just there are multiple times, and we saw it last year, where he'll just not give a shit and he'll just sort of half-ass it. And, if you're going to be an offensive lineman in the NFL, you can't really half-ass anything. And Trent Brown definitely has that problem. I don't know if it's, Dante Scarnecchia retiring and not being there anymore because, Trent Brown has publicly said he loves Dante Scarnecchia. So I don't know if that had something to do with it. I don't know what it was, but when Trent Brown's on his game, he is just a giant people mover. He is really good in pass protection, really good run blocker. It's just they need to keep him focused and need to keep him caring through a whole 60-minute game, all 17 games. But if they can do that, he is a good enough left tackle and a good enough starting caliber tackle, really a top 15 tackle when he's on his game. And then you go across the line, Cole Strange, who was their first round pick last year, played really well as a rookie last year. Definitely had some hiccups, as most rookie linemen do. But for the most part, he's a great athlete, held his own. I think he's just going to only get better. I mean, New England has had a history of developing offensive linemen throughout the years. And, guys like David Andrews and Michael Onwenu are key examples of that. David Andrews, he was a late drafted guy many years ago, and he's just been the model of consistency. He has been the cog that keeps this offensive line going. You saw it last year when he's been injured. They have not been as good. When he's in, they're one of the best lines in football. So if they lose him, it sucks. But if they have him, they are a unit to be feared, especially with Michael Onwenu right next to him. He was a 6th-round pick out of Michigan back in 2020. He's going into a contract year, and he is legitimately one of the 5 best guards in football. He has stepped in his rookie year back in 2020, and he has just been a monster ever since. He's a really good pass protector, even better as a run blocker. Like, there are times where he will go into the run game, and he will just be deleting dudes in the run game, and it is so fun to watch. If I'm New England, it is a priority to keep him around for the future because it is hard to find guards like him, especially as late as they got him. And then the real only question mark in this group is the right tackle. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't really focus on that. Right now, the starting right tackle at the moment is listed as Connor McDermott, though they did sign Riley Reiff in the offseason, though he is up there in age. Riley Reiff is like 34 years old. So it is really a wait and see on what they do with him. But at the moment, Connor McDermott is listed as the starter. And he went in a few games last year and played fine, though that is the clear weak spot in this unit. And then as you go down, number 2, Miami. I mean, they broke the bank for this unit last year when they brought in Teron Armstead, and he's been really good for them. He was as good as advertised. Connor Williams, another free agent they brought in last year from Dallas. He's been a really good starting center for them. Robert Hunt, who's moving back in from guard. He played tackle last year. They're moving him back into guard, and he's really good as a tackle. I think he can be even better as a guard. And you have 3, this is the thing with this Dolphins line. You have 3 very clear strengths and 2 very clear weaknesses. Liam Eichenberg has not been as good as they expected him to be after spending a second-round pick on him a couple of years ago out of Notre Dame. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's just a strength thing. I don't know if it's just the game is too strong and too fast for him, but he has just not been as good as they expect him to be. They're hoping that he can take the strides. He took mini strides last year, but they're hoping he takes the big boy strides and actually becomes what they expect him to be. And then at right tackle, Austin Jackson. To be honest, I don't even know why he's still on this team. He's just been a complete bust after they spent a first-round pick on him in 2020 out of USC it was. And yeah, man, he's just been a borderline liability for this team. I don't know why he's still here. I was shocked when I looked up the hour lads to make this graphic, and I was like, Austin Jackson's still here? Why? He's just been a complete bust for them. And then you get to the Jets, and this is another reason why I'm very skeptical on the Jets' success this year. And it starts with left tackle. Dwayne Brown is listed as the starting left tackle at the moment, mainly because we just don't know what's going on with Mekhi Becton. And honestly, I'm done speculating on and hoping for what Mekhi Becton can be. Yeah, at some point, it's like, you got to stay healthy. And that's just been the problem with Mekhi Becton, is he's never been able to stay healthy for a full year. He has the traits. He's a brick shit house. He's strong as hell. But he's never been able to stay healthy, and I'm done. I'm done trying to wait on what he can be if he's able to stay healthy and be like, oh, but the upside, the strength's incredible. Yeah, but it hasn't really shown. Even when he's on the field, he's played well when he's on the field, but he's never on the field. So I'm done speculating on what Mekhi Becton can be. So Dwayne Brown is listed as the starting left tackle right now, and he's been in the league forever. He's 37 years old. Regression's going to come at some point, but he's been everywhere from. He's been a long-time elite tackle in Houston. He's been a great tackle in Seattle. You know, he came here last year for the Jets, and you know, like I said, he's 37 years old. He's going to regress at some point. He's not going to be the old Dwayne Brown forever. So it is really a wait-and-see thing. And there is a real situation where Mekhi Becton is not ready to go. And if he is ready to go, he's not as good as people think he can be. And Dwayne Brown's age finally catches up to him. And all of a sudden, Aaron Rodgers' blind side is just a complete turnstile. That is a real possibility here. And then you move across the line, Laken Tomlinson, they gave him a big contract last year from the 49ers. He was really not as good as they thought he could be. He played really poor last year for them. He was nowhere near what they paid him. So they're hoping he takes a step up and goes back to his San Francisco form. Connor McGovern is one of the few bright spots on this line. He is just sort of a good starting caliber right tag. What the hell? I'm thinking of Connor McDermott, which, by the way, I'm going to mention this right now while it's on my mind. As far as the offensive lines in this division goes, they have a bevy of Connors across the board. You have Connor McDermott for New England, who's their starting right tackle at the moment. You have Connor Williams, the starting center for Miami. And then you have two guys. One is a starting center for the Jets, and another is a starting right guard for the Bills, both of whom are named Connor McGovern. That is the most hilarious fucking thing to me. I realized putting this together, I was like, there's a fuck ton of Connors in this division playing O-line. So I just thought that was funny. But anyway, back to the Jets' Connor McGovern. He's just a good starting caliber center that can be a good starting center for them for a long time. Elijah Vera Tucker is by far and away the best lineman they have here. He missed most of last year after, what was it? I think a torn bicep it was. So he missed most of last year. They're hope to get him back, and he'll be hopefully just as good as he was before the injury. And then Max Mitchell, who was a late round pick for them last year, came in, started a few games for them, and struggled. Like I said, most linemen do, especially late round linemen. And he played tackle a little in college. And I don't know if it's like he did play left tackle in college, so I don't know if moving to the right, that had something to do with it. There are some times where guys they're able to play one side of the line, but not the other. Maybe it's the same thing with Max Mitchell, but he struggled significantly last year. So we'll see if he can improve because he has the athletic upside to do so, but it's a wait and see. And then Buffalo is just, to me, a clear bottom of the barrel. Deion Dawkins is their best offensive lineman, but that's not really saying much. You know, Mitch Morse has been there for a long time, but he's on the decline. Ryan Bates is just fine. Spencer Brown is just fine. And Connor McGovern, they brought in the offseason from Dallas. And again, he's just fine. And Deion Dawkins is a good left tackle. He's a good starting left tackle, but when he's your best offensive lineman, that's a bit of a problem. So they're a clear bottom of the barrel for me. The Jets, it's a whole the Jets are just potential. We're hoping they can be better than what we think we're hoping they can be as good as we hope they are, if that makes sense. So yeah, this is a situation in this division where there are two lines where if they can stay healthy, you feel really confident that they can be some of the better O-lines in the league in New England and Miami. And then there are two groups below them that are just, one is we'll wait and see, and the other is just, yeah, you can do significantly better. Now let's make a little bit of a transition here from the offensive side of the ball now to the defensive side of the ball, starting with this offensive line, where here I have the New York Jets ranked number 1, and that's really all thanks to one man and one man only, and that is Quinnen Williams, who really did burst onto the scene last year. You saw it ever since he got drafted back when, 2019 out of Alabama. I mean, he had a rough rookie year, but he's been getting better and better, and then last year he just went super sane and was just wrecking teams. Watching Quinnen Williams last year was absolutely fun to watch. So he is absolutely the clear superstar of this group. But not to be outshined by him is their best edge rusher, John Franklin Myers. He's sort of an unknown name as far as the mainstream media goes. Jets fans know who he is. Diehard football fans know who he is. And diehard football fans and Jets fans know just how much of a true dominant edge player he can absolutely be. Was with the Rams for a while, was drafted by the Rams. Wasn't that much a contributor there. Comes here to the Jets, and in Robert Saleh's system has just absolutely shined. He has power, he has strength, length. He is incredible to watch. And another addition they got in the offseason was from Seattle, Al Woods, defensive tackle. He's just a giant space eater. He's huge as shit. He is north of 300 pounds, so he's really just brought in to be this team's space eater, and they're something to get dominant in the run game, because this team, believe it or not, wasn't as good in the run game as you'd think they would be, but that's why they brought Al Woods in, to be that big space eater in the front, and he'll be good at just that and just that alone. Pass rushing, he's okay, but that's not really what he's here for, so they don't have to really worry about that. They can worry about that from Quinnen Williams, who they'll be just fine with that. And then Carl Lawson is somebody that I'm just kind of struggling what to think about. You know, they gave him that big contract coming over from Cincinnati, and he struggled staying healthy. And when he has been on the field, he hasn't been as productive as that contract has it made him out to be. And, he's just kind of been kind of a disappointment here. But they're hoping that he's going to be the other starting edge across from John Franklin Myers. And they're hoping with Myers on the other side, with the emergence of Quinn Williams, that's going to take a less pressure off of Carl Lawson to be that number 2 pass rusher. But, these past couple seasons with the Jets have been very disappointing for him, to say the least. And then I have Miami ranked at number 2, and you can make the argument that they're number 2 just based on potential, and I will talk about that potential in a little bit. But first I want to talk about Bradley Chubb, who they acquired in a trade from Denver last year. The theme of Bradley Chubb is, everyone's waiting for him to be this true dominant alpha. That was the thing when he got drafted, with a top 5 pick in 2018. They were expecting him to be that dominant pass rusher opposite of Von Miller. And then his entire time when both Von Miller and Chubb were in Denver, they never played a single game where they were both on the field together. So we never really got to see that really develop or see what potential that could possibly have. So Bradley Chubb has kind of been forced to be a number 1 pass rusher for most of his career, and he's not the best at it. There definitely is some deficiencies in his game that prevent him from being the dominant pass rusher like a Von Miller, like a Nick Bosa, like a Joey Bosa, guys like that. He's not close to that level. He has the physical tools to do it, but for some reason or whatever, it just hasn't gotten to that point. But here in Miami, there is a potential where he doesn't have to be this team's alpha pass rusher, because I believe that Jalen Phillips will, by season's end, assert himself as this team's true number 1 pass rusher. Jalen Phillips is a freak, man. I mean, we saw how much of an athletic freak he was coming out of Miami a couple of years ago. We saw the explosiveness off the line. We saw all the tools were there. And so far in Miami, especially last year, he has shown it that he is so quick off the ball. His pass rush moves are so deadly. He is something special, and he can be a freak in this league for years to come. The problem is, when I say years to come, is how many years is that? Because the problem with Jalen Phillips is it's same thing with Tua, where if he gets another concussion, he might have to retire because, Jalen Phillips, he's already retired from the sport one time. He played for many years at UCLA, got multiple concussions, was forced to retire because of it, was out of football for a couple of years, transferred to Miami where he played, got back into the sport, dominated, became a first-round pick as a result. And he's come to Miami in the league, and the Miami Dolphins, that is, and has once again continued to dominate. But again, it's sort of that thing of, if he gets another concussion, what happens then? So they're hoping that doesn't happen with him again, because if he doesn't, like I said, he's going to be this team's alpha for years to come if he's able to stay healthy. And then you go inside, and Christian Wilkins is, once again, he's the big name. He's the loudmouth, but not in the way you would expect a loudmouth to be. I mean, just go on NFL Films and listen to his mic'd up moments. It's one of the most entertaining things you'll ever hear. But Christian Wilkins, again, not a superstar, especially not compared to these guys like Quinnen Williams. But he is just, again, another really good pass rusher, also a really good run defender. And he is the perfect guy to, not just for this defensive line, but to also be a good leader for this whole Dolphins defense as a whole. He brings the energy. You could tell he's a true leader in that group. So he is a guy that Mike McDaniel is hoping to keep here for a long time. He is what the Miami Dolphins want to be on defense. So that is, having a guy like him here is quintessential, because the guy right next to him is Zach Sealer, and, he is just okay. Sealer's just an okay, solid defensive tackle, but you don't expect to get much production out of him. The production you expect to get out of Christian Wilkins. Sealer is just sort of like your fine, average 3 tech, gonna hold his own and run defense, eat up a couple blockers, and that's pretty much it. And then you move on to number 3, which is the Buffalo Bills. And I need to start with Von Miller. Von Miller, I am nervous of what we're going to get out of Von Miller this year. The main reason I'm nervous about Von Miller is because he's coming off a torn ACL that he suffered in the middle of last year. And we don't know what he's going to look like. Remember, he's 34 years old. And the Bills signed him to a 6-year contract last offseason. So he signs a 6-year deal, then suffers a torn ACL. He was dominating for most of the year. He looked like he had not lost a step whatsoever. But then, like I said, blows out his knee mid-season. And now the question is he going to look like the Von Miller of old? And to me, there's 2 situations that could pop up with Von Miller. And that is either A, he doesn't miss a beat, he comes back, looks like the Von Miller of old, and plays like the Von Miller of old for the next couple seasons. Or there is a real situation where he comes back and he is not as explosive and he's not as dominant in the pass rush because he is 34 years old coming off a major knee injury. So that is a real possibility. And that's where they're hoping Gregory Rousseau can take the Quinnen Williams-esque leap and just completely become a game wrecker that myself and many people expect and hope for him to be. Because he's the same thing where he came out the same class as Jalen Phillips did, and I think he's even freakier of an athlete and has even more physical traits than Jalen Phillips does. And the fact that they got him at, 28th overall in that draft is just ridiculous. He should not have been available past pick 15, let alone pick 28. But he's another guy, ironically, coming out of the University of Miami with Phillips, which, God, can you imagine ACC offensive lines back in the day with having to block Jalen Phillips and Gregory Rousseau? Jesus Christ. But anyway, back to Gregory Rousseau. It was the same thing where he didn't get on the field much in his rookie year, but the times you got on the field, you definitely saw flashes in his game. And same thing last year. Didn't play as much, but as you hope he would. But again, saw some flashes. And you're hoping this year as a full-time starter, he's going to put that all together, put it consistently, take those physical traits that he has, and put them to proper use and become the Myles Garrett-esque pass rusher that I expect him to be. Now, I know that's a little too much of an expectation to put on him this early, especially a guy that hasn't started as much. But that's the kind of athlete we're talking about with Gregory Rousseau here. So I'm really excited to see what he can do, especially if Von Miller doesn't return to form because of the injury. And then you move into the inside, and Daquan Jones, pretty much take what I said about Al Woods and just copy and paste. He is just a big, dominant 3-tech in the run game. Pretty decent as a pass rusher. Good run defender. But he is just there to eat up space to allow guys like Ed Oliver to eat. And speaking of Ed Oliver, he's another guy, top 10 pick. But unlike guys like Quinnen Williams, he just has not taken that leap that the Bills have expected to. Not to say that Ed Oliver has been a bad player. He's actually developed into a pretty good player in these recent years. But they spent a top 10 pick on him. And when you spend a top 10 pick on a player, you expect them to be not just game-changing, but franchise-changing. And Ed Oliver just hasn't been that. He's been very good. He's been a very good pass rusher. Not as good in the run game as they would have hoped. But, that was sort of his deficiency coming out of Houston. But, he's been just a really good starting 3-tech. but not as dominant as they expected when they drafted him in the top 10. And finally, it's a unit where, again, it's a thing where somebody had to rank last, but not to say that this is a bad pass rush unit, number 4, but New England. And the reason why I have them ranked at the bottom compared to all these other groups is, unlike the other 3 groups ahead of them, they don't really have that superstar pass rusher or that guy that you have circled on the chalkboard where you're like, we got to stop that guy. They don't really have that guy at this moment in time. The closest thing to that is Matthew Judon, who he was a part of that huge wave of signings in 2021 for New England. And he has been just as good as advertised. It has been a kind of a theme his first 2 years in New England, where the first half of the season, he would just be putting up these crazy sack numbers, just getting sacks left, right, and center. And then the second half of the season, he would taper off. That has been the theme with him. And that's just sort of what you get. And that's why I don't consider Matthew Judon a superstar pass rusher, is because you're not going to get that full season of this dominant pass rush and sack productivity. Now, if you're able to get that productivity throughout the entirety of the season, then this would not be the 4th ranked defensive line in this group. But, that's sort of the limitations you have with Matthew Judon. But myself and many Patriot fans would make the argument that Judon's the bigger name, but he is not the best pass rusher on this team. To me, the best pass rusher is Josh Uche, who, again, he was another guy where he was a 2nd-round pick. Took him a while to get out of the doghouse because he would not see the field that much his first couple seasons. It took him a long time till he was finally able to get some proper starting reps, and that wasn't until the middle of last season. And he was drafted in 2021, and we saw it in spurts his first couple of years where, hey man, when he gets on the field, he's able to get pressure and get after the quarterback. But for some reason, they would just never let the dog loose and put him on the field. They finally did that in the middle of last season, and he went batshit insane. His bend is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. His speed off the line is insane. He, now coming into this year, being the full-time starter on the edge opposite Judon, I expect a huge breakout year for Josh Uche, and I expect him to get paid heftily in the offseason. He is that special, that talented. And then you move on to the inside, and Christian Barmore, the thing with him is he hasn't been able to stay healthy. If he stays healthy, he's another guy where it's like, if he stays healthy for an entire season, this is not the 4th ranked pass rush in this division. He is so dominant as a, not as a not run blocker, as a run defender. He really isn't all that committed to it. So as a run defender, don't expect anything out of Christian Barmore. But as a pass rusher, holy shit. And you even saw it in the few games he played last year, where he would just take the guard or the center and just bitch them constantly. When he's on a one-on-one situation with a guard, the guard has no shot. He's too strong. He's too powerful. And if he's able to stay on the field all year, that's another piece where all of a sudden you have Christian Barmore causing chaos up the middle. You have Judon and Uche from the edge. You can't block all of them. It's going to be insane. And again, if those guys are able to get on the field for the whole year, Judon doesn't taper off, Uche is as good as we think he is, and Barmore can stay healthy, there's no, I know I sound like a broken record, but there's no way that this is the worst pass rush in this division. In fact, I would argue it'd probably be number 1. But, that's all on potential right now, and we have to see those things first before we actually put them in that position. But it's a thing where we have to rank somebody fourth, and unfortunately it's New England right now. And honestly, the less we say about Lawrence Guy, the better. There was a time where he used to be a really good defensive tackle, but he's up there in age and pretty much a shell of what he once was. But now let's move further up the front seven and talk about the linebacking core. Now, you will notice that this graphic looks a little different from some of the others. Is because some teams use, 3 linebacker bases. Some teams use 2 linebacker bases. It really all depends on the team and what their base defense is. So this graphic is going to look different depending on that. And another thing, I'll point this out now before some people notice, is Drew, why is it that number 1 has, you're talking about the linebackers, but yet you're showing both 2 safeties in Kyle Duggar and Adrian Phillips on this graphic? That is why this linebacker unit for New England ranks number 1, because just on paper, you would say, all right, DeJuan Bentley and Jahlani Tavai is, they're okay, but they're nothing crazy. But what makes this an elite linebacking core is how they use these safeties. No team in the league uses these hybrid safety linebacker types better than Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. Because I know they only have 2 of these guys listed, but realistically they have like 4 of these guys. Jabril Peppers is another guy not listed here that is going to be used in this role a lot. Depending on if Joshua Bledsoe makes the team, he's another guy they can use. But they have these guys that are like, are they safeties? Are they linebackers? And the answer is yes. Because DeJuan Bentley is your classic 250-pound thumping linebacker where you put him as your middle linebacker and he can be a dominant run defender. But you put him in a situation where he has to cover a tight end or a running back out of the backfield and put him in coverage, he is a bit of a liability. And that's where these safeties come into play, because they could just take one of these safeties, rotate them down, and have them basically bail out DeJuan Bentley and not expose him to those kind of matchups. And it is so fun to watch. Like, if you like defense and you like defensive coaching and these different personnel groups and rotations, the Patriots are masters at this. And just seeing them use Kyle Duggar, bringing him in the box, or bringing Adrian Phillips or Jabril Peppers into the box and having them, because I remember when they signed Jabril Peppers, I assumed because they had enough safeties that they were just going to convert him to linebacker to full-time. And they still pretty much could if they wanted to and still get that safety level production out of him, because they could just match these guys, like I said, on tight ends and running backs, and they could feel just fine and not feel like they're left on an island or with a true weak spot with DeJuan Bentley or Jahlani Tavai having to cover those guys, because that is a clear weakness of their game. So that is why this linebacking core ranks number 1. It's cheating a little bit, but also not really. And then we move down the rest of this group. Number 2, with Miami. They signed David Long in the offseason from the Tennessee Titans. Just a really good, solid linebacker, modern linebacker. Not the biggest guy in the world, but he's fast, athletic, and he, like I said, he is the prototypical modern linebacker. Really good in coverage. Not the best run defender at all. But again, in the modern NFL, you don't really but you don't need your linebackers to be like that type. You don't need your linebackers to be built like DeJuan Bentley all the time. And then the guy right next to him, Jerome Baker, I will say is a tad bit overrated by Dolphin fans. They treat Jerome Baker as if he's this superstar or this superstar on the rise, and he's just not that. He's the same exact player as David Long, where he's just a very good player. You definitely can do worse than him. You're happy with him as your starting linebacker, but they're definitely better players than him in the league. Really good blitzer, really good in coverage, but other than that, he is not like the Fred Warners or the Bobby Wagners, not even close. not even close compared to how Dolphins fans talk about him. And then he moved to number 3 with the New York Jets. And we start out with Quincy Williams, the brother of Quinnen Williams, 2 brothers on this team. And Quincy is just like his brother, but just smaller and more athletic. And also, he is just a running freight train. He is built like a modern linebacker with an old school linebacker mentality. He's fast, athletic, can cover, but he is also coming downhill full speed and coming down to take your head off. He loves to hit. He is a big hitter, and he is just, I mean, you watch him in games, he is just like a bat out of hell on most run plays. It is so fun to watch Quincy Williams play the run because of that reason. And then CJ Mosley, I think at this point, CJ Mosley is one of the most underrated players in the league because, you know, they signed him to that big contract a few years ago from the Baltimore Ravens. And he, only played like 2 games his first 2 years with the Jets. So everybody was just automatically putting on the waste of a signing, he's a bust label on him. But it's gotten so big to the point where people have ignored in these past couple seasons that he's actually gotten back to the CJ Mosley they expected when they got him from Baltimore. You know, just this really good, sound linebacker where he's the true leader of the defense, points everybody in their spots of where to be. He is the captain of the defense, where he looks like what he was in the Baltimore Ravens. Great cover player, really good run defender, and it's gone virtually unnoticed because his first 2 years in New York were a disaster for the most part. So I think people need to start putting respect back on CJ Mosley's name because he's earned it. And then the third linebacker, Jermaine Sherwood, he's been a special teamer, finally getting a chance to play this year. We'll just have to wait and see what he can do. And then there's a clear bottom of the barrel with number 4, where it's literally just with the Buffalo Bills. It's really just Matt Milano and everybody else. Matt Milano, they were able to secure him a couple years ago on like a ridiculously cheap contract. It was like 4 years. I think it was like only like $44 million or something like that. Like really, really good deal, especially, you know, considering most contracts in the NFL for players on Matt Milano's caliber. But he is just, again, where he has been one of the captains of the defense, where he is just an excellent cover player, probably the best cover linebacker of any of the true linebackers in this entire ranking. And he has just been the heart and soul, for the most part, of this Bills defense for many years now. So the fact that they're able to still keep him around, and they're going to rely on him a lot more with the departure of Tremaine Edmonds in the offseason. They are relying on Matt Milano to really carry this linebacking core. And they're relying on him to do it badly because the 2 guys next to him, Tyrell Dobson and Terrell Bernard, they have been mostly special teamers and backups their entire time here in Buffalo. They haven't seen the field that much, mainly because they didn't have to. Like I said, with Milano and Tremaine Edmonds, you know, being really freaking good in the middle. But like I said, Tremaine Edmonds left in the offseason, took a big contract with the Bears. So now they have to rely on these guys, and it's really just a wait and see. You know, we don't know what these guys are going to look like. So that's why I say it's Matt Milano and everybody. It's Matt Milano and everybody else at the moment. And then last, but certainly not least, is the secondary. And I talked this whole video about how difficult it was to rank some of these position groups in this division. There is no group that I feel that way about more than the secondary. I swear to God, I've changed this ranking about 3 times because there's always that moment where I'm just like, but this has the more potential, but this is more proven, but they weren't as good. Like, So finally, I was just like, you know what, screw it. And I settled on this one. And it starts with the Buffalo Bills at number 1. And there's, again, an argument where you can say they're not number 1, but they are the most proven group, but they also do have question marks. Tre'Davious White missed most of last year with an injury and came back and wasn't all that great. Micah Hyde missed all of last year. Jordan Poyer is still Jordan Poyer, and that's good. But Kyer Elam struggled last year. He is listed as the starting corner opposite Tre'Davious White right now. But I expect him to be much better year 2. Rookie corners usually struggle tremendously coming into the league, regardless of how physically talented they are. But I expect Kyer Elam, with a year under his belt, to come in and really assert himself as a reason why the Bills felt comfortable spending a first-round pick on him. And then the guy opposite him, Tre'Davious White, like I said, struggled in the games he did come back and play last year, did miss most of last year. But Tre'Davious White is still one of the elite corners in the league. Before he got injured, I think people got lost in the conversation because people always talk about, Jalen Ramsey or, last year was Sauce Gardner, and we'll talk about him in a sec. But Tre'Davious White, I always feel like gets lost in that conversation where he's just as good, if not better than some of those guys, where he is just really athletic, really great long speed, sticky as all hell. And it sucks he got injured, but he hopefully will come back this year and go back to the Tre'Davious White that we all know and love him to be. Same thing with Micah Hyde, where he missed all of last year, like I said, but if he's able to return to form off the injury, he is, again, one of the most underrated safeties in the league, where he is incredibly rangy, incredible speed, great athlete, great anticipation when the ball is in the air. Without him, this secondary and really this whole defense struggles tremendously without him, because there are a lot of times you saw last year where there were plays down the field where you look and you're like, man, if Micah Hyde was back there, he would have made that play, or that play wouldn't have happened had he been back there. So they are elated to have him back. And then Jordan Poyer, I mean, again, pretty much take what I said about Micah Hyde and copy and paste. Though he's more of a true strong safety compared to Micah Hyde, but just as athletic, more of a downhill thumper, but still an excellent coverage player. This safety tandem is still, in my eyes, the best safety tandem in the NFL. And if both these guys are able to stay consistent and stay what they were before Micah Hyde got the injury, then, again, I don't expect that to be any different. Already talked about Kyer Elam. And then Teron Johnson is listed as the starting nickel at the moment. Just a very good starting caliber nickel. Not really too much to say about it. Not going to blow plays, but also not going to really make any big splash plays either. Just a very good, solid sound nickel to have. And then number 2, this would be number 1 with the Miami Dolphins, if not for one big injury. Jalen Ramsey, who they traded for in the offseason, he would have been this team's starting number 1 corner week 1. He injured his knee and is not going to be playing any games until December. So there's no point in talking about him or ranking him here because he's not going to be available for 3/4 of the season. So this is the unit they're rocking with at the moment. And even then, it's still a really strong unit. Xavier Howard, he kind of took a little bit of a dip last year, where he was getting all the buzz in 2020 and 2021 as being one of the elite corners in football. That hype has died down on him, but he's still an excellent corner with excellent ball skills. But they're going to have to rely on him being the number 1 corner again. But again, he's done that for the past few years, so I don't expect that to be a problem at all. But not having Jalen Ramsey on the other side of him definitely sucks. But hey, Xavier Howard's still Xavier Howard. I'm not worried about that. And Javon Holland, I expect to take another leap into asserting himself as a legit top 5 safety this year. I mean, he played really well in his rookie year and then took a step up last year and was completely dominant last year. Watching Javon Holland is so much fun. I mean, you saw it even back in his days at Oregon. He's just so fluid, such a great athlete, so fast and rangy. He's just so fun to watch. And watching him in this Dolphin defense, I'm so excited to see how Vic Fangio uses him. Because you know about the typical Fangio defenses where he likes to rotate his safeties. He likes to use his safeties in different ways. And now he gets to have a guy like Javon Holland who, oh man, I'm just so excited to see how Vic Fangio deploys Javon Holland. It's going to be so fun. Brandon Jones is a little less fun, but he's still, a good, solid safety. Classic strong safety. Much better run defender than he is a coverage player. But nothing to write home about. You're definitely happy that Javon Holland is on the other end of him. And then their starting nickel at the moment is, I'm going to try to pronounce this name right, Kadar Kaho. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that name right. But he made some good plays last year. I do feel comfortable with him being the starting slot at the moment. You could definitely do worse than him. But no, he's a really good starting slot corner. I think has a lot of room to improve to be better than what he was last year. And then there's one clear blemish on this ranking that keeps it from being number one. And that's going from Jalen Ramsey to Eli Apple. And look, I know everyone loves to rip on Eli Apple. He was a bust with the Giants, bounced around the league, got torched a lot throughout his career, especially considering he opens his mouth a lot and doesn't really back it up. That's sort of the reason why he's gotten this bad reputation. But look, I'm just going to say it straight up. He wasn't a bad corner in Cincinnati. I'd actually make the argument is actually a pretty good starting corner in Cincinnati. Now, I don't know how he looks out of that system now and in a completely new one. That's the big question because Cincinnati's really been the only place where he's played good football. So that's a big question mark. So that's sort of the reason that keeps this Dolphin defense, or this Dolphin secondary that is, from ranking as the best clear-cut secondary, not just because they're not going to have Jalen Ramsey for most of the year, but because they took a significant downgrade with Apple. But that's really all I'm going to say on that. And then number 3, this might be controversial to some people, but I will say this. Outside of the corner duo, what else in the secondary do you really have? That secondary being for the New York Jets. And, we got to talk about Sauce Gardner. What is there to say about Sauce Gardner that hasn't already been said or what we haven't already seen? He is everything that was advertised coming out of Cincinnati and then some. He's just the definition of a lockdown corner, reminiscent of, to Jets fans, the prime years of Darrelle Revis, where if they're getting another Darrelle Revis-esque player, they will gladly take that, especially if it's going to be for the next 10 years. And Sauce Gardner, we don't know if he does take the regression in year 2. I highly doubt it because he is so technically sound and he is so long and lengthy and athletic. So I don't expect any regression. I do expect a little bit of a sophomore slump, but not to a crazy extent as we see with other guys who break out in their rookie years and then take a dip in year 2. I think Sauce Gardner is still going to be a top 5 corner in football by year's end. And then we shouldn't ignore the guy on the other side of him, DJ Reed, who they got him from the Seattle Seahawks last year, and he would be getting a lot more buzz if Sauce Gardner wasn't on the other end of him, because DJ Reed played like a number 1 corner in his own right. You know, he was he was same thing. He's very fast, lengthy. I mean, he's coming over from Seattle. They like those bigger corners. And, I feel like if it's a situation where if something happens to Sauce Gardner, they feel more than comfortable with taking DJ Reed, putting him on a team's number one, and just shutting him down for the rest of the game. DJ Reed is that good, and he'd be a legit number one corner and get a lot more buzz if he was with any other team in the league. But instead, he's here with the Jets, opposite Sauce Gardner, and they have by far and away the best corner tandem in the league, and in my eyes, it's not even close. The weak parts of the secondary is definitely the safeties. Tony Adams is, he's been a backup and getting a chance to start here, and it's just sort of we have to wait and see what he does. And then Jordan Whitehead, same thing. They brought him over in free agency last year from Tampa. They gave him a nice contract, expected him to be a really good star safety for them. And, they're still waiting on him to be worth the money they gave him. But, with Jordan Whitehead, he's just your classic strong safety. Best when he's coming downhill, not when he's backpedaling. So I did think it was a little bit of an overpay when they brought him in. But, it's what you see is what you get with Jordan Whitehead. And then Michael Carter, the second, the corner that is, not the running back who's on this team. That's also confusing about this Jets team is that they have a bunch of players with the same or similar names. Same thing here. They got a corner named Michael Carter, and they got a running back also named Michael Carter. I don't know. Some teams are weird like that. But Michael Carter, the corner, is a solid slot corner. One of the better slot corners in this division and one of the more underrated slot corners in the league. Really sticky, really fast. And, you can definitely there's definitely better starting slot corners in the league. But Michael Carter is nothing to, turn away from, if that is. I was trying to think of a better way to say that, but I don't know. And then, once again, somebody has to rank last, and right now it's New England. For the same reason I've said all video is this is the only group at the moment that doesn't have any superstar players. They're hoping Christian Gonzalez can be that guy, who I still cannot believe they were able to get Christian Gonzalez at 17th overall after they had already traded back in the first round. It blows my mind that they were able to do that the NFL allowed Bill Belichick to get his hands on Christian Gonzalez. Because what's the one position that Bill Belichick has been able to consistently churn out elite caliber players at? Corner. And he's done that with guys with less physical traits. He's done that with Stephon Gilmore. He's done that with J.C. Jackson, Asante Samuel. Now he's going to get a guy with actual elite athleticism to mold and develop. Are you kidding me? If he is not a top 5 corner or a top 10 corner by the time his rookie contract is up, then something went horribly wrong, because he has all the tools you can possibly imagine. He's one of, if not the most fluid athlete I have ever seen, regardless of just from the cornerback position, just in general. His fluidity as an athlete is just something to marvel at. It's almost hypnotizing. Like, you watch him do DB drills, and you're just like in awe. You're just like, I cannot believe someone is that fluid of an athlete. So they are expecting huge things from him, whether it's in year one, because like I said with Kyer Elam, rookie corners tend to struggle year one. It's a really tough position to play in the modern NFL, so especially for rookies. So, there definitely expect some growing pains year one, but once you get into year 2, year 3, expect Christian Gonzalez to really assert himself as one of the best corners in football, hopefully, if he develops properly. And then opposite him is Jonathan Jones, and he is really asserted himself as a good starting outside corner. He was a slot corner for many years in New England. They moved him to outside because he has the speed and the technique to do it. And he's held his own doing that. He's been on the outside for 2 seasons now. He's going into year 3 being on the outside full time. And he's not a superstar, but he's just a really good, solid outside corner that's not going to really let anything up because he still has speed, despite the fact that he is getting up there in age a little bit. But he still has the speed, the athleticism, and the technique for sure to still be a really good outside corner. And then Marcus Jones is the starting nickel at the moment. And he is a guy that he has a lot of Patriots fans buzzing because of his play last year, was really good in the slot last year, was also really good on the times he was playing on the outside. I remember in the game against the Raiders, he was matched up on Davante Adams on the outside, and he held his own, man. He really did hold his own, despite the fact of he was 5'8" and going against Davante Adams. But he is an excellent athlete, and he's going to dominate in the slot this year. Also a dominant return man as well, so expect big plays from him this year. He's definitely become a fan favorite really fast here in New England. And then the safeties, I mean, Kyle Duggar has that strong safety spot locked down. I mean, I already talked about him a little bit in the linebacking segment, where he is this hybrid safety linebacker where he is good enough to play deep in a deep zone, good enough to man up on tight ends and running backs, but also big enough to come downhill and thump and play linebacker. He is everything Bill Belichick loves in a safety, and I'd be stunned if they don't sign him to an extension before he hits the open market next year, because he's in a contract year. So it's interesting to see what they do with him. And the real only big weak spot right now, or the big question mark at the moment, is the free safety spot. Adrian Phillips is listed as the starting free safety at the moment. I don't think it's going to stay that way. I do think at some point Jalen Mills is going to take over as that starting free safety. I mean, it's what he played in Philadelphia. It's what signed him, what got him signed to New England in the first place, was how good he was in Philly as a safety. And I'm also recording this after the after the first preseason game the Patriots had against the Texans, where Jalen Mills was in at free safety and he played really well. So I expect Mills to be the starting free safety, but at the moment, according to Our Lads, not that Our Lads is the be-all and end-all, but Our Lads has Adrian Phillips listed as the free safety at the moment. And Adrian Phillips, the reason I'm skeptical of it is he is rangy enough, but how rangy is he to play free safety? Now, if they were still having him in that strong safety hybrid linebacker role, I mean, he's, again, just as good as Jabril Peppers, where he is an excellent tackler, an excellent thumper. The question is, how athletic and how rangy is he to play free safety? But like I said, I don't think he's going to be the starting free safety going into the year. That's just what it's listed as at the moment. I expect Jalen Mills to be that guy for sure. So that is going to put a wrap on this division. And like I said, man, this has the potential to be everything we expect it to be, of the most dominant conference in the most dominant division in the most dominant conference in the league. Or this has the potential to be what the AFC West was last year, where it has all this expectations and it reverts back to what it was before. But it is a really interesting wait and see. But that is a wrap on this. Stay tuned in a couple days, where we will be coming back with another Eastern division, this time with the NFC East. Expect that to come out in the next couple of days. But with that being said, I am Double Diesel. Peace.